The story begins with an ordinary unlucky otaku named Nanba Kazu who somehow finds himself regressed to 17 years old for the third time. While he tries to protect his girl Yui from an otherworldly monster, he keeps wondering if he should tell her the truth and whether she would even believe him. As the story rewinds back, our dead guy finds himself kissed by an angel as a reward for defeating a bunch of demon deities along with their underlings and even the demon king. The angel tells him that the world will remain at peace for 50 more decades, and that makes Kazu feel relieved knowing all his efforts have finally paid off. In return for his efforts, the angel presents him with 3 choices. He can either ascend to the heavens or be brought back to life, choosing between this fantasy world or his original world, Earth. Kazu recalls his former life on Earth where he worked as an underpaid employee in his 40s, forced to endure endless unpaid overtime until he finally dropped dead and found himself reincarnated into a world filled with swords and magic. Even though he has saved this magical world, the civilization here still feels way too primitive for his swag, and he isn't getting the vibes he needs. What truly pushes him to give up on it are the painful memories of countless deaths that continue to haunt him. So he requests to be sent back to his original world. The angel lady grants Kazu's wish, and he starts imagining his return as a humble, middle-aged, underpaid worker. The first thing he plans to do once he gets back is to slam his resignation letter right on his fat boss's desk. Remembering all the anime he has missed, he gets excited thinking about binge-watching them like it's Saturday night every single day. Before leaving, he decides to test his magic one last time, knowing well that it will vanish once he returns. He had trained desperately to master it in order to defeat the demon deities, and he knew that even a fraction of his power could make him a superhero straight out of an anime. Still, he has had enough of all the magical drama and nonsense and simply wishes for a peaceful life. As the scene shifts, Kazu opens his eyes and realizes he has just been knocked out by a football on his school playground. He gets up with a nosebleed and finds himself mocked by a group of bullies who had just slammed the ball right into his face. The main bully sarcastically apologizes, saying he only meant to give him a light kick. When Kazu looks dazed, the bully sneers and asks if he has lost his memory. It takes Kazu a moment to recognize him from his high school days, and just as he starts putting the pieces together, his childhood friend Shiratori Yui rushes over and asks if he is all right. She takes out her handkerchief and tries to clean the blood trickling down his nose. Right as she is about to touch his chin, Kazu says her name, and Yui gets startled, accidentally slamming his face again in embarrassment. Our boy instantly remembers her as Yui, the daughter of a powerful CEO, the school's beloved celebrity and crush, and most importantly, his childhood best friend. He wonders what happened to her after high school, yet no matter how hard he tries, that part of his memory seems to be missing, like what happened to Asuna Yuki in the ordinal scale. Yui then asks him what kind of trouble he has with the bully Kakagawa. Meanwhile, Kakagawa aims another shot right at Kazu's head, but this time something unexpected happens. Kazu reacts instinctively and punches the speeding football back, smashing it right into the creep's face. The bully drops flat on the ground with a nosebleed of his own. Our hero finds it strange that his strength and magic are still present, while Yui stares in disbelief and asks him what he just did. Kazu decides to confirm his suspicion and test out his abilities. He releases a wave of energy that cuts through the leaves like a powerful gust of wind, watching them scatter around him. Still not convinced, he turns to Yui and asks her what year it is. Yui looks confused and replies that it's 1997, then curiously asks why he would even want to know that. Hearing this, Kazu recalls the late 20th century classics like Pokemon and that one famous robot deity anime that broke records with millions of views. What annoys him more than anything, though, is realizing that he has once again regressed to the same age he had been during his time in the Isekai's magical world. He starts freaking out over the idea that he's 17 for the third time and wonders if, when counting all his lives together, he's technically over 60 years old by now. Watching him act this weird, Yui asks if he forgot to eat breakfast or something. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the human world, one of those otherworldly monsters known as a Dark Valkyrie, or simply one of the variants, can be seen licking the blood of a human she has just brutally murdered. Later that night, our hero somehow ends up in space using his powers. He manages this feat by forming a protective barrier around himself through compressed air, and then cloaking his body with invisibility to avoid unwanted attention. To break free from the planet's gravities, he has used high-speed flight. Once he's up there, Kazu decides to try out some real magic since the only one he has used since returning is enhancement magic. Gathering his courage, he goes Super Saiyan and his body starts bursting with energy so strong that it literally tears through his muscles. He immediately heals himself with recovery magic, but even though he manages to patch up fast, the pain still hits him hard. He keeps repeating the process again and again until he finally builds the physique of a pro athlete, strong enough to endure the pressure of his own magic. After pulling off this cheat skill, the Super Saiyan blasts off at insane speed, crashing into the moon like a meteor and breaking chunks off its surface. Once he realizes what he's done, Kazu gets to work fixing the mess, though now he's certain that his power is far too much for this world, and he'll need to tone it down before things get worse. Meanwhile, Yui is walking down the street, still wondering why her friend was acting like such a weirdo today. Despite her confusion, she blushes as she remembers how she held his hand for the first time in ages. She passes by the park where she and Kazu first met each other years ago. She recalls how she had gotten lost that day, and how he was there to cheer her up. The two ended up playing for hours and later got scolded for ruining their clothes and getting covered in mud. When Yui walks over to the same bench, she freezes at the sight of fresh blood splattered across it. Before she can react, the dark Valkyrie from earlier drops down on her from the top of a streetlight, forcing Yui to spin around in panic. It seems like blood sprays into the air like a fountain, and far away, near the moon, where Kazu is still piecing its surface back, he suddenly feels that something has gone terribly wrong. It turns out that Kazu had unknowingly set up a danger detection spell on Yui, and for some reason, it's suddenly reacting. When she gave him her hand earlier to help him stand up, he had instinctively cast the spell out of habit from his time in the other world. He never consciously realized it, nor did he expect the magic to activate this fast, yet here it is, already triggered. Sensing the alert, Kazu immediately gathers his strength, charges up, and dives straight back toward Earth to check on his girl. Back on the ground, Yui is still in one piece, but when she looks up at the creature before her, she quickly recognizes it as a dark Valkyrie. She seems pleased that her prey has appeared right in front of her, saving her the effort of hunting. Yui wastes no time and activates her stockings, which she calls Gungnir, though she can't help but feel awkwardly uncomfortable each time she uses them. This Gungnir is actually a magical divine artifact, but she never truly got used to it. The artifact enhances her kicks, so she charges in with a mighty strike that sends the dark Valkyrie flying. Even so, the creature survives the hit and twists her head and the rest of her body back to its place. Meanwhile, as our hero dives toward Yui, his senses pick up a strong magical presence surrounding her. It bothers him since magic like that shouldn't even exist in a world like Earth. Back at the fight, Yui is holding her ground, dominating the exchange, yet no matter how many times she attacks, her Gungnir fails to land a finishing blow. She starts realizing that the Dark Valkyrie's strength is on a completely different level, which far exceeds the robot targets she used to train against, and the gap between their physical powers becomes painfully clear. As the Dark Valkyrie opens an opening to strike and starts getting excited, Yui quickly switches her artifact to its quick battle edge mode. A series of sharp attacks erupt from beneath the Valkyrie, catching her completely off guard. Meanwhile, our boy is still descending from the sky and senses Yui's magical energy suddenly rising for some reason. Yui doesn't waste the moment and charges forward, using her finishing move. She dashes toward the variant and strikes with the Odin Edge, a war deity blade technique that slices clean through and leaves the monster headless. Sweat trickles down her face as she struggles to stay steady. She barely manages to defeat a single enemy, yet the moment the threat is gone, relief washes over her. She starts to stagger, realizing how draining it actually is to use a cheap copy of a divine artifact in real combat. Just when she lowers her guard, another blow lands and sends her crashing to the ground. Yui forces herself up only to find 3 more variants standing right in front of her. Panic sets in since she could barely handle one, and now there are 3. One of the Dark Valkyries rushes in and smashes her aside like a toy. The variants laugh at her misery, mocking the helpless girl lying in front of them. That's when our hero finally makes his landing, right in the middle of the chaos. He steps forward and stands in front of Yui as she looks up at him with teary eyes. Trying to make sense of the scene, he jokingly asks if he's interrupting some kind of cosplay event. One of the Valkyries snarls in anger, furious that her fun has been ruined by a random boy dropping from the sky. She launches an attack straight at him, and Yui shouts Kazu's name in fear. But before the creature can even finish her move, Kazu counters with a powerful blast, then dashes forward and rips out her heart. He only wanted to check whether the monster was actually heartless, but the heart disintegrates into dust and scatters into the air. Yui can hardly believe what she's seeing. Her love interest just pierced straight through a variant's chest with his bare hands, something she knows shouldn't even be possible when a tank shell can't make a dent in it. As our guy relaxes after that victory, Yui snaps at him, yelling that the Valkyries are still there. Kazu, though, doesn't even flinch. Instead, he smiles, breaks the weapon of one of the Dark Valkyries, and casually keeps a piece of it in his hand before blinking out of sight. Then, as if that wasn't enough, Kazu turns the broken weapon piece into dust with a blow, and then uses it to completely erase the Valkyries as if they were mere dust. He looks at Yui and asks about those monsters, wondering what they are. She fires back with her own question, demanding to know who he really is. The story jumps back to the present, where Kazu stands deep in thought, unsure if he should tell her the truth. After a moment of silence, he decides to come clean, explaining that even though he's the same Kazu, he was reincarnated into another world and has now returned to his original one. The next day, back at home, his sister Futaba calls him for breakfast. When he doesn't respond, she storms to his room and yells at him, calling him an idiot as usual. But the moment she pushes the door open, she freezes. For the first time in forever, her waste of oxygen brother is fully dressed and ready for school. Futaba takes a solid moment to stare, trying to process the impossible scene, before she snaps and tells him to answer if he's already up. After that, she cannot understand how her brother, who is literally never on time, suddenly turned into Mr. Responsible overnight. Then, her jaw instantly drops when he says he is going to make breakfast from tomorrow onward, like a proper big brother. Futaba grabs him and starts choking him while screaming that it is impossible for a guy who sucks at doing anything at home to cook breakfast. Kazu confuses her when he argues he survived alone for 20 years and makes her blush with a surprise head pat attack. He tells her that they only have each other, so they should help each other more. Later that day, he ends up late to meet Yui, and she tells him something terrifying. Whoever a variant feeds on is slowly erased from the world. Yui asks if he remembers his parents after saying that, and he says yes to her obvious question. But in that moment, it hits him that he can barely recall any memories at all, and he starts to panic, wondering if he might be a variant victim. Yui quickly apologizes for pushing him, saying she really needs his otherworldly power because her only wish is to get revenge on the variants. Hearing her emotional voice, memories of Yui from his past life suddenly rush into his head. But what he sees is not comforting, a horrifying image of her lifeless body lying on the floor. With that thought haunting him, he promises to fight them together with her. The next morning at school, our boy realizes he was actually serious about it last night. But the truth is, he has no clue about what variants are or how they work. Just then, Yui calls out to him from behind and invites him to join her for lunch like it's the most natural thing in the world. He asks her why she is getting so close to him so suddenly, and she shyly reminds him of his promise to always stay by her side, to fight together, of course. After teasing him for acting clueless, she explains that it will be easier if they spend time together at school, even though it makes everyone else around them more than a little jealous. On the rooftop, Yui tells him about artifacts and how their replicas can be made from variant bodies. She explains that these artifacts are humanity's only real way of fighting back against the menace, and only a select few people can ever wield them. As she goes on about how the user must be compatible with the artifact, Kakagawa suddenly walks up and cuts in, calling it messed up to turn down a Chad like him for a guy suffering from severe aura deficiency. The guy tells her he will make sure she enjoys every moment with him, and even when she warns that her family does not allow her to date guys, the scumbag grabs her by force. Seeing that scene, our boy's hands slip, and he straight up headshots the sleazybag with a flying chopstick attack. That stunt makes Kakagawa furious, and he yanks Kazu's collar, demanding Yui explain what she even sees in him. After that, he dares our boy to fight him man-to-man, so they later gather at the dojo to settle it with swords. Kazu honestly wonders how he even got dragged into this nonsense, but the jock smirks and tells him to put on a helmet if he does not want his head smashed like a watermelon. When Kazu asks why he is not wearing one himself, the guy confidently declares that a black belt does not need such things when he is about to fight a pathetic weakling. All the girls cheer for Kakagawa, and our boy wonders if they seriously came here just to watch him get beaten up by their crush. The guy then sets the terms, saying that if Kazu loses, he is not allowed to stay anywhere near Yui again. Before Kazu can even say a word, Kakagawa lunges at him with an overhead slash, but our boy easily sidesteps it, leaving the black belt impressed despite himself. Kazu then keeps dodging each and every one of his heavy swings with smooth precision, realizing the scumbag is always aiming straight for his vital points. In that moment, Kazu slashes into Kakagawa's flank, and the loud thud echoes through the dojo, making Kakagawa and his entire fan squad go completely speechless. Seeing that, the black belt grows absolutely furious and shouts that he will not hold back anymore, but Kazu slips past his attack and instantly drops him with a crushing overhead slash. Meanwhile, elsewhere nearby, a bird rushes to deliver a message straight to Lord Thor himself. The Lord of Thunder demands a reasonable explanation for the bird's annoying screeching since he is in the middle of a brutal hangover. The bird nervously reports that 3 dark Valkyries were just destroyed by humans. The moment he hears that, the Lord of Thunder tosses his booze aside and rises to his feet in excitement, eager to witness the sight with his own eyes. Back on Earth, Kazu is watching Yui in the training hall pulling off some mad karate moves, which she ends with a Hadoken ripoff just to show off. She asks him what he thinks of her skills, and he tells her she might barely scratch the level of a professional. Yui gets annoyed by his harsh judgment, but he explains she needs to train her muscles until they break past human restraints. She fires back that piling up only muscle would make her a brute, but Kazu calmly replies that she still needs to improve her muscle density. Then he shows her a pill that has the same magic as his own, one that forcibly trains muscles by ripping them apart. Yui accepts right away, thinking she can handle it. Of course, the moment she swallows it, she drops straight to the ground from the overwhelming pain. Later at school, rumors spread quickly about what happened with Kakagawa. Outside the nurse's office, his loyal fangirls line up with worried faces. The brain-dead blonde assures them their Prince Charming merely slipped and just got a bump on the head back then, and it was definitely not from the sword Kazu smacked across his skull. Meanwhile, Kakagawa also racks his brain on how Kazu moves so swiftly. As he lies in the office, a girl comes in and tells him to get on the bed so she can take good care of him. During their steamy moment, he only thinks about how much he wants to steal Yui by force. That dark desire bubbles inside, and his body suddenly begins to twist and transform into a variant. Back in the training hall, Kazu is calmly meditating when he feels a strange burst of magic ripple through the air. Right then, Yui desperately calls out for help, still writhing under the pill's painful effects. Realizing he completely forgot about her, Kazu quickly apologizes and places his hand on her shoulder, pouring healing magic into her body. The feeling overwhelms her, and she admits with a flustered face that she might actually get addicted to the intense stimulation. After that, our boy casually tells Yui her body can handle the weight of magic if she manages to endure the pain for a week straight, but she fires back that it sounds like plain torture. Then he asks if she can show him the power of her artifact on the dummy, so Yui summons Gungnir and is surprised that the pain from summoning is not that bad. Kazu points out how her muscle training is finally paying off. With that, she goes all out with Gungnir, and our boy instantly confirms his suspicion. Yui cannot believe she just wrecked her family's strongest dummy, and her body does not ache a bit. Excited, she turns to him for some well-earned praise, but Kazu suddenly gets serious and warns her not to use the artifact for a while. Confused, she asks him the reason, and he explains that the poorly designed thing was never made with the user's well-being in mind, so it will slowly destroy her body from the inside if she keeps relying on it. That answer makes her sad, and when he questions why the company would hand something so dangerous to the owner's own daughter, Yui finally reveals her father himself was the one who entrusted it to her. She explains that her father's mission is to use his company as a bridge to connect with anti-variant organizations, and Yui is one of the rare adapters capable of using the company's artifacts just like her mother. Kazu quickly pieces the picture together and realizes her deadbeat dad simply pushed all of his goals onto her without a second thought. While he wishes he could fix everything for her, he still tells Yui to completely forget about using Gungnir for now. She instantly snaps because that means she will not be able to fight anymore, and that is why he repeats that he only needs her to stop for a while before suddenly grabbing her legs. Watching him cop a feel, she asks in embarrassment what he is even trying to do, while our boy is busy rapidly decoding the magic circuitry of the artifact. Right as he realizes he can control the output and lower the burden on its user with his own magic, a variant suddenly busts open the front door. Yui is surprised to see Kakagawa standing there, but her expression quickly turns dark when she notices he has a girl's head in his hand. Kazu struggles to recognize the girl's face, no matter how hard he tries to remember, and he realizes his mind is going blank like always whenever a variant is close by. Sensing something other than Kakagawa, he asks Yui if variants use human bodies as vessels, but she explains her family only knows that variants cross over from another dimension and consume people to survive. At that exact moment, Kakagawa casually throws the girl's severed head like a bowling ball, but our boy steps in and uses his magic to effortlessly destroy it with a single, precise move. He tells his childhood friend to stay behind him as he pulls out his magic toothpick sword, and the variant starts shrieking, melting, and twisting into a grotesque mass. Strangely enough, it shifts into the form of the Lord of Thunder, who talks about the door being too small, then laughs like a maniac the instant he spots the two-dimensional stick figure who slayed 3 Valkyries. Concerned, Yui asks if he has ever seen a monster with intelligence this sharp, and Kazu warns her that its power is just as terrifying as its mind. He then asks if the small door the man mentioned is the same thing he uses to bring monsters into Earth. But Thor completely ignores the human peasant, proudly introducing himself as the one and only Lord of Thunder. He summons his trusty hammer and smashes the ground, unleashing a wave of lightning at Kazu, but our boy manages to block the attack and wonders aloud if the Lord of Thunder is annoyingly loud and deaf. The Thunder Lord Thor finds it fascinating that his mighty attack was completely deflected without even a scratch. Yui, still trying to process what just happened, turns to our guy and asks for an explanation. Kazu calmly tells her that the big thunder dude just smashed the ground with his hammer, causing massive shockwaves to burst out. Thor laughs at the casual way he's being addressed, saying it's quite bold to speak so informally to a lord named Thor, though he admits he finds the boy amusing. Hearing that name, Kazu blinks and wonders if this guy really dropped straight out of Norse mythology. Yui warns Kazu that things look bad since this Thunder Lord seems to be an irregular variant, and she's already dreading how she'll explain this whole mess to her family later. Kazu decides to make Thor spill whatever information he's hiding. Thor refuses to be threatened by what he calls a mere human and prepares for another attack. He leaps into the air, gathering an absurd amount of magical energy at his feet before coming down with a wild move called the Thunder Lord Jump Kick. Kazu briefly zones out, trying to remember which anime he's seen this exact move in, but quickly snaps back and blocks the attack using a strange whip-like weapon. Thor smirks, starting to doubt if Kazu is even human. He admits that even back in the mythological era, only a handful could block that kind of strike, and he wonders if maybe he just didn't charge enough power into his leg. Kazu, on the other hand, starts to suspect there might be some strange connection between this Thor guy and Kakagawa. Finally, Thor agrees to answer questions, saying he'll do so while enjoying the fight. As their clash continues, our boy asks if he came to the mortal world by possessing a human as a vessel. Thor launches another kick, which Kazu dodges and replies with a yes. He explains that deities and lords like him have long lost their influence in the mortal world, unlike in the mythological age when their presence alone could shake reality. He further adds that a while back, they started to be able to use worthless trash like humans as gates to get a toll-free entry to this world. As their spar continues, Kazu asks how it is possible for a human to summon an entire deity just for ordinary spellcasting. Thor replies that no human should be capable of such a thing, and that even if they have no idea when, where, or how this happens, one thing he knows for sure is that the hunger for human meat is real. He says the hunger gets so strong that the variants lose their sense of self and turn into those mad-brained dead demons from Demon Slayer. Still, higher-level beings like him can control it. Kazu then asks if Thor could stop devouring humans, but when the Thunder Lord says no, our boy decides that it's time to end him for good. Thor gets thrilled when he senses that killing intent and laughs that Kazu might be on the same level as his so-called father, Odin, when filled with rage. From that, Kazu understands that these variants have no control over when they appear in this world, and since he's done questioning, he focuses on finishing the fight. Thor says he's going to get serious now as his magic power surges even more. Yui can sense the sudden spike in energy and starts to worry, while Kazu calmly says that it looks like Thor is going all out. Thor launches another one of his attacks called the Thunder Lord Pursuit, but our middle-aged officer slices straight through his body, cutting him apart with his sword. The Thunder Lord crashes to the ground, yet he looks oddly satisfied, saying that he had a lot of fun today and hopes to fight Kazu again the next time they meet. After finishing him off, our hero turns to Yui and admits that he never expected a variant to be capable of entering this world by using humans as vessels or doors. There's something else strange, too. Both Kakagawa and the girl he had brutally killed earlier are slowly disappearing from his memories, as if they never existed at all. Just then, Yui's father's guards arrive, searching for her, and she starts panicking about what would happen if her family found out about Kazu's situation. Kazu waves her goodbye and takes off into the sky. As he flies, he wonders if he can change fate by defeating these variants and maybe save Yui from the death that seems destined to come. Somewhere else, a group of variants gathers and learn that Thor has been taken down. They find it strange that he had barely arrived on the planet, yet his presence is already gone. One of them is busy devouring human flesh, while the others argue about whether Thor was killed by a relic user, before casually switching topics to their cafeteria and food supply. As the scene shifts, Kazu dreams of the time he was about to face the demon deity in battle. He wakes up when Yui calls out to him. She scolds him for skipping class just to nap in such a weird spot and complains that she had been literally searching all over for him. As he gets up, Kazu wonders if that dream came from using too much of his magic power lately. After spending 2 weeks back in this world, everything from that other world already feels like a fading dream. Yui then hands him an old personal handheld phone system. When Kazu reflexively says how nostalgic it feels, she looks confused, and he quickly comes up with an excuse to cover it up. She smiles and tells him to keep it so they can stay in touch, explaining that he can use it to send emails and other stuff too. Kazu plays along, pretending to be amazed since this kind of technology should still be new for the time period he has regressed to. After they exchange numbers, he decides to show off a little. Using the phone as a medium, he manipulates its energy and creates a makeshift magic detection device with his electric control ability. He activates it and starts scanning for any signals. Meanwhile, somewhere far away, a girl who is walking with her guy wanders into a shady old abandoned building and ends up getting caught by a variant. The creature drags her away toward what they call their cafeteria to feast on her. Right then, our guy senses the magic of 3 nearby variants. Without wasting a second, he picks up Yui and a Princess Carrie and starts moving across rooftops, following the signal through quick leaps. When they finally reach the source, he picks up a strong, unpleasant scent, while Yui's expression turns serious as she vows to never forgive these monsters. Just then, a female variant launches at her, but Yui swiftly blocks the attack and kicks her away. The creature grins with her mouth dripping blood, laughing like a lunatic. Yui steps forward and tells Kazu to let her handle this one. She activates her badge mode and uses her horn of assault technique, sending a wave of energy that tears the variant apart. Kazu praises her skill, but before they can relax, 2 more variants make their appearance. Yui feels uneasy as she realizes that all these variants seem far smarter. The one leading them, named Loke, transforms into his true form while complaining about how hard it was to set up their so-called cafeteria. Yui stands firm and demands to know what they did to the missing people. In response, Loke casually showcases a severed arm in front of her and says that Ratatosk's gang already devoured the rest. Yui gets furious and leaps forward to attack, but Kazu instantly realizes the danger and shouts for her to stop. Before she can react, she's trapped inside Loke's wall of the end spell. Acting fast, Kazu breaks through the spell and manages to pull her out just in time. He tells her to stay back and let him deal with this one, as this one is way out of her league. Loke looks intrigued that Kazu managed to save the girl, even though the spell had fully activated. He then asks if they were the ones who sent that stupid Thor back to where he belongs. Skirnir, who is Susanoo, standing beside him, warns Loke to stay alert, but Loke acts as if he is the boss here and tells him to shut up. Loke then pulls out his flashy cardboard sword and activates a skill called the Ring of Envari. His weapon slashes through Kazu, leaving him wounded, as it is specialized to attack only living beings. Loke grins proudly, boasting that the curse he has just inflicted on our guy is strong enough to paralyze even a giant Fenrir. But before he can finish bragging, Kazu stands tall once again, completely healed. Kazu casually calls it basic healing magic. In his previous life, he had mastered countermeasures for every type of status effect imaginable. Loke's smirk fades when Kazu makes his move, and one clean strike from our hero is enough to send him straight back into the myths. As his body begins to fade, Loke mutters bitterly that no one ever told him humans like this even existed. Before Kazu can relax, Skirnir chuckles, saying our boy looks more like a wizard out of some fairy tale. Then, in a blink, he appears in front of Kazu and pushes him down with full force, slamming him into the ground. After he recovers, our boy notices something strange. Susanoo did not just move fast. He vanished from existence for a moment. In all his years, Kazu has seen magic used to pull off superhuman feats you could barely imagine. But one thing magic never achieved was teleportation. Our boy asks Susanoo about his ability, but instead of answering, the man praises him because he managed to tank his ultimate god domain Absolute Realm and still stayed standing. When Kazu hears those words, he wonders out loud how many brain-rot TikToks it takes to come up with a name that ridiculous. Hearing that, Yui tilts her head and asks what a TikTok even is, and he remembers that he's in the past. After that, Kazu tells him straight up he's going to regret messing with him, and that he better start spilling everything about who he really is. But before things go any further, an assistant at Susanoo's side cuts in. She informs him that their special person called him. Our hero freezes, stunned that another presence was nearby the whole time, and he never sensed a thing. With that, Susanoo says they will have a proper introduction next time, and waves goodbye like it's casual. Right after that, the man disappears with that same teleport trick. When Yui notices Kazu standing there with regret on his face, she asks what is wrong. He double-checks with her if that guy's name was really Susanoo. Yui confirms, and that's when Kazu realizes that Susanoo is a god from Japanese folklore. That might mean variants may be tied to the ancient legends themselves. On top of that, he felt it again. His memory draws a blank the exact same way it did in the earlier variant encounters, right when Susanoo used his so-called God Realm attack. The next morning, our boy looks dead tired, dragging himself to school. Futaba looks at that and asks if he's sick or something. When he claims he's perfectly fine, the little Sherlock does her own deduction. She assumes he stayed up all night playing games and gets jealous, whining that she wants to play too. Just then, Yui spots him from a distance, so the siblings go their separate ways. He meets up with her, and she tells him she already had her family dig into that gang from before. But they came back with nothing. She does point out, though, that her family's organization has more knowledge about the Nordic variants, but when it comes to the Japanese ones, they have no real experience at all. Our boy is left at a loss since his magic detection fails on them, and he realizes he needs help from an actual professional, someone who specializes in Japanese variants. The very next day, a substitute teacher shows up and claims he'll be teaching Japanese literature. But the moment Kazu and Yui see him, both freeze. The man looks way too much like the crafty variant from before. He introduces himself as Narayama, offering to take any questions, and our boy racks his brain trying to figure out what this guy is plotting. After class is dismissed, only Kazu and Narayama remain in the room. Our hero wastes no time. He calls Susanoo by his real name and accuses him of planning to use the students as hostages. The substitute teacher laughs it off, mocking Kazu's wild imagination, and even questioning if he's really 17. Our boy tries to brush off his suspiciously violent thought process as nothing more than too many games and anime, but Susanoo assures him he won't harm the school, says he came here for him. Pulling out a case of pills, he tosses it to Kazu and tells him to figure out where it came from. Sensing a faint trace of magic inside, Kazu asks what they're for, and Susanoo casually replies that it could be considered like coffee, but coffee that only works on variants like him. That answer throws Kazu off until he remembers the psycho he saw in the rundown building. Narayama confesses he was posing as a Nordic variant and using the drug business to get close to variants buying the product. That whole plan, however, went up in smoke when Kazu pulled his FBI raid and destroyed all the evidence. Our protagonist apologizes, but refuses to cover for a failed operation just because he messed it up. Intrigued, Susanoo leans in and asks him to think hard if there's anyone precious to him. But our boy instantly denies it with a cool demeanor, refusing to show any kind of weakness. That kind of professional response makes Susanoo crack up. Then the variant wonders aloud if he even knows whether this so-called precious person is safe right now. Kazu gets mad the moment he realizes what the demon is implying, and he rushes off without a second thought. Meanwhile, in the bustling city, Yui is walking the streets, worried about Kazu, when a goth girl with depression locks onto her and suddenly charges straight at her. She instantly activates Gungnir and launches a spinning kick right into the variant's head, but its skull is so hard the attack does nothing. Right as she switches modes to prepare another strike, she hears Kazu call her name. A heartbeat later, he comes flying in and slices the goth variant clean into 2 pieces. While she stares at him, all confused, he immediately asks with genuine concern if she got hurt anywhere at all. Yui appreciates the help but still insists she could have handled that variant on her own, even without him. Just then, Susanoo strolls in casually and compliments him on one-shotting a demon specializing in defense, even if it happened to be one of the weak ones. That only makes our boy even angrier. He demands to know exactly what Susanoo truly wants. The man repeats without hesitation that he wants information on the drug using variants from the cafeteria. After that, the man reveals his devilish plan in detail, saying it's far easier to break into the club by becoming the customer instead of acting as the supplier. Seeing the hesitation on Kazu's face, Susanoo leans closer and warns him to quietly play along, unless he actually wants his precious person to get hurt all over again. Our boy weighs his options quickly. No matter how strong he is, there's no way he can protect Yui from a broken teleport ability like that. Kazu reluctantly agrees to cooperate for now, but makes it crystal clear that he will hunt Susanoo down without mercy if he ever dares attack someone close to him during the mission. Later on, Yui nervously asks if he is really fine with working together with such a dangerous variant. He assures her he honestly has no other choice left. Feeling guilty, Yui apologizes for being such a burden, but Kazu tells her it really is not that bad. He doesn't see Susanoo as just another mindless zombie, and even better, he might find a way to beat variants like him in the time they spend working together. Elsewhere, the assistant questions Susanoo, asking if he truly believes cooperating with humans is the right path when Lord Nada despises them completely. Annoyed, Susanoo tells her to stop yapping if she doesn't want to get fired. A week flashes by in the blink of an eye, and Yui finds herself dressed up like a queen at some rave party. Sitting uncomfortably, she's approached by a generic party boy who tries to invite her for a drink. Before he can make his move, our boy, looking like a snack, grabs him from behind and calmly asks if he needs anything from his girl. The guy looks crushed because she already has a boyfriend, while Kazu tries to pull himself together after he just spilled his guts after downing way too many beers, which his 17-year-old body can't handle. After that, he refocuses and locks in on Susanoo's plan. The variant explained that once a month, all the demons gather at clubs to feed together, and that's the most likely time to trace the drugs. Hearing this, Kazu questions if sending two high schoolers in as a fake couple is really smart, and the thought crosses his mind that maybe this was all a trap. As he's deep in thought, Yui softly calls his name, then suddenly leaps right on top of him. Looking visibly drunk, she leans onto him, asking if there is someone he secretly likes. Before he answers her, though, she suddenly confesses she is thirsty for him right now. After a few steamy moments, Yui pulls back in a rush and snaps herself back to her senses. The two glance around the crowded club and notice that nearly everyone is acting like a complete degenerate, most likely because the drugs are being mixed into all the drinks without exception. It finally clicks for Kazu that's probably why his body registered the alcohol as poison and forced him to spill it out earlier. Yui hides her face, feeling super embarrassed about her own shameless behavior, but right then, a variant steps forward and interrupts their night. Kazu warns Yui to brace herself because things are about to get ugly. All the werewolf-looking freaks suddenly turn toward them after finishing off their last meal. Our boy can't help but be impressed by the cafeteria's pill, a dual-function drug that amps up a variant's power and gets humans high. With that thought, he forms a glowing ball of lightning in his right hand and slaps the soul out of a variant in one clean hit. He quickly realizes there's no way these beasts are acting alone. There's got to be a mastermind pulling the strings somewhere. There are around 20 enemies and no chance he's taking them all down solo, so he leaves it to Yui to handle the rest. Standing back to back, the duo turns the place into a full-blown slaughterhouse. When it's over, our hero steps outside to catch his breath only to notice a girl floating midair, radiating spiritual energy. She introduces herself as Kagutsuchi, a loyal servant of Master Susanoo. She asks for a status update, and Kazu tells her to go check for herself that all the variants inside are already taken care of. After that, he pulls out a small pouch filled with the same pills she's been hunting for. He tells her they contain traces of magic strong enough for Susanoo to track down the source. That's when she suddenly asks him if he's not curious why Susanoo is so desperate to find these drugs. The question catches him off guard, and Kagutsuchi then explains the truth about Susanoo's wife, Lady Kushinada, who was murdered by humans. Kazu is surprised that her name is also from Japanese mythology. She continues that Lady Kushinada was fragile, too delicate even for a variant. Susanoo did everything he could to keep her safe. But one time, when he was sent away on a mission from their special person, the humans captured her. They drugged her completely and committed unspeakable acts before they finally killed her. Kazu connects the dots that this is why Susanoo said he knew how dangerous it is when your enemies know someone precious to you. Just then, Yui runs out and mentions that the unconscious people inside are starting to wake up. Kazu heads back in immediately. Before leaving, Kagutsuchi warns him that the people who killed Susanoo's wife were from a Japanese anti-variant organization, and asks him to help her master when the time comes. Later, Kagutsuchi informs her master that she has successfully traced the origin of the organization responsible for creating the drug. Hearing that, the man smiles with quiet satisfaction, believing his wife can finally rest in peace. The next day, our boy wakes up with a hangover that feels almost as painful as watching the ending of Attack on Titan. Even though every part of his body hurts, he still gets dressed and heads to the kitchen to find his sister. He's surprised to see she's missing and remembers she didn't even come to wake him up like she usually does. Just then, he senses faint traces of mana coming from her plushie and recalls that he placed a danger perception spell on it. Kazu realizes it shouldn't be possible for anyone to reach Futaba without triggering it, and that's when it hits him: instant teleportation is the only way. Meanwhile, deep in a quiet forest, Susanoo stands before Futaba, who is tied to a tree in a ceremonial dress. He stares at her with a creepy look, and it's clear he plans to use her for some kind of ritual or maybe a deal. Kazu instantly calls his girl to tell her that Futaba has gone missing and that he is heading straight after Susanoo. Yui quickly warns him not to fight alone under any condition, but before she can say more, the call ends abruptly. Our hero arrives right in front of Susanoo and demands to know where he has taken his sister. He speaks with anger as he reminds him how he once said that if he ever laid a hand on a human, he would end him without hesitation. Our boy rushes at him with his overwhelming magic power, the kind that makes even Susanoo, the Lord of Battle himself, take notice. Yet Susanoo only gives a calm grin and says it is all pointless before cutting through our guy in a single motion. The Lord of Battle explains that every power becomes null against his deity's domain absolute realm. He goes on saying that he also has perfect teleportation and the Kusanagi sword, a divine weapon that stands above all others in close combat. He proudly praises the blade, saying it can literally cut through anything known to exist. Susanoo then calls our boy the strongest magician alive and asks if he is sure that he does not want him to go easy on him. Kazu uses a large amount of magic to heal the serious wounds he received and realizes that this warlord might actually be on par in strength with the demon lord from the other world. Susanoo tells him again that fighting against him is a waste of time and instead makes a proposal, asking Kazu to join forces with him to destroy the anti-variant organization once and for all. Kazu remembers what Kagutsuchi had told him about Susanoo's wife being murdered by that same organization and asks if this is really about revenge, and if taking his sister was just a way to force him into destroying them. Kazu prepares himself and shouts in fury that he will end the Lord of Battle right here and now. He charges at Susanoo but finds himself trapped inside the Absolute Realm skill. Susanoo smirks and calls him a stubborn kid, saying his attacks are meaningless, though it soon becomes clear that Kazu has actually managed to wound him. Our hero then reveals that he has figured out the trick behind it. Variants like Susanoo can use casualty interference magic, a higher form of fortune-telling that allows them to rewrite events themselves. He continues by saying that whenever they devour people, all their memories and traces vanish, asking if what they are really doing is manipulating existence itself. Susanoo laughs, saying that even if Kazu understands it, there is nothing he can do about it. But right then, our boy appears behind the Lord of Battle and calmly tells him that he has already seen the limits of his power. He points out that even Susanoo cannot casually erase anyone from existence, or else he would have done it long ago. Kazu further explains that there is a small range of motion required to trigger the power, and that even for a brief moment he can detect it. He then gives a practical demonstration, saying that if one can stop the power from activating in the first place, then nothing can be rewritten. Susanoo looks stunned, realizing that someone has managed to overpower him. He admits that Kazu stands beyond even Yamato Takeru. Forced to get serious, the warlord unleashes his true form, his appearance shifting as a skull-shaped cap of a demonic bird rests upon his shoulder. The warlord says that no one has ever forced him to take this form since the time he defeated someone called Arachi. He calls it his heavenly cloud-gathering form, and the power radiating from him now goes far beyond anything he had shown before. As he prepares for a devastating strike, he suddenly asks Kazu if he has ever lost someone precious to him. For the first time, the Lord of Battle seems burdened with grief. He admits he cannot understand why deities like them were sent down to this foolish world only to feed on human flesh, and why his beloved wife had to be murdered. His voice trembles with frustration as he shouts that he needs answers to these questions, his emotions exploding as he launches a fierce attack. The blast is so powerful that its light reaches Yui, who immediately grows worried for our boy and rushes to check on him. Meanwhile, Kazu stands firm in the aftermath. His arm bears burn marks which he quickly heals. He had used 12,000 layers of magical barriers, yet even that could not completely block Susanoo's attack. Susanoo himself looks shocked, unable to believe that Kazu survived a strike from his Kusanagi while he was in his ultimate form. As he readies another attack, Kazu feels a flicker of unease, realizing that in his current condition, taking another hit might not be possible. The Lord of Battle repeats his proposal, urging Kazu once again to join him. But when he refuses, Susanoo declares that he shows no mercy to those who disobey. As the warlord prepares to attack again, Kazu begins casting his own spell, saying that since Susanoo called him the strongest magician, he should at least show him his magic. He admits that his advanced elemental spells suck, but he says that he has mastered something far more efficient, a form of enhancement magic that rivals interference itself. With that, our boy boosts his agility to over 30 million times its normal limit. Susanoo grows anxious as he witnesses Kazu's power climb to a divine level, but before he can even move, Kazu strikes him with a devastating blow that even a deity cannot withstand. The mighty Lord of Battle crashes to the ground defeated. Kazu, though victorious, falls to his knees, completely drained after chaining together multiple basic spells. The power he unleashed is strong enough to bring down even a demonic deity, yet the recoil from using it is so immense that he avoids relying on it unless absolutely necessary. The boy knows that if this is not enough, he is finished, since he already used the ace up his sleeve, and sadly, his luck seems to run out when Susanoo simply stands back up. The Lord admires him for making him taste the fear of defeat for a moment, and he boasts that Kazu might actually be beyond those guys, Sag Fried Rice, Arthur Pendragon, and even Hercules. Just as the Lord bellows that this is the end for our boy, someone stabs him clean through the chest. Susanoo immediately slices through the attacker, only to reveal that the one responsible is actually his own assistant, Kagutsuchi. Kagutsuchi says she has been waiting for this moment the whole time, calling her master's situation pitiable, and when Kazu demands to know why she turned on him, she admits she has been working with the Japan Anti-Variant Organization all along. She argues that her master is a worthless old-timer who doesn't realize that his ways are outdated, and in this era, forming alliances with humans and using each other is the only ideal future for them. Lord of Battle gets angry and asks Kagutsuchi if she was the one who gave his wife to the humans. Kazu charges straight toward the betrayer, saying that he may not understand the full story yet, but he is certain that Kagutsuchi is someone he cannot allow to live. The woman smirks and easily overpowers him with her fiery chains, slamming him hard into the ground as she mocks that he has already reached his limit. Laughing madly, she reveals that her plan had been to make both of them destroy each other from the start, and it worked out perfectly. She brags that handing them over to the organization will secure her position and earn her the luxury of an all-you-can-eat human buffet. Just as she basks in her supposed victory, Yui suddenly appears behind her, catching her off guard and unleashes her Ragnarok break with full force. Yui never wanted Kazu to be dragged into this fight, but after witnessing what the variants did, she simply cannot forgive them. Her attack lands perfectly, slamming Kagutsuchi into the ground as the traitor ends up licking the dirt. Yui walks toward her battered boyfriend, squishes his cheeks like he is a kid, and immediately switches into scolding mode. She blasts at him for acting like an idiot, fighting alone, and forgetting about his comrades. Our hero lowers his head, remembering how his old companions in the other world used to tell him the same thing, yet he keeps repeating the same mistake. Kazu admits he was wrong and thanks her for saving him this time. The scene softens for a moment, but Kagutsuchi is not done yet. She quickly recovers and lunges in for another attack, which Kazu barely manages to deflect using the last of his strength. Yui tries to strike again, but this time her attack misses, and she is thrown back violently. Kazu rushes forward and catches her before she hits the ground, telling her that luck like hers will not save them every time. The traitor smirks, declaring that this is the end, but before she can move, Susanoo appears behind her, catching her completely off guard. He points his divine sword at her and coldly declares that the one who is finished is her. A brilliant light fills the area as he summons his final power. Realizing what he is about to do, Kagutsuchi panics, recognizing the spell as Yasukani no Magatama. She screams in disbelief, knowing this means total destruction for both of them. Without a moment's hesitation, Susanoo activates the self-destruct magic, wiping her out along with himself. As the light fades, the Lord of Battle, barely standing, smiles faintly as memories of his beloved wife flood his mind. He murmurs that he never expected Yui to be the one to save him in the end. Kazu, still tense, steps closer and asks him to at least tell him where his sister is before he kicks the bucket. Susanoo nods weakly and releases Futaba, who appears completely unharmed. Then he reveals a shocking truth. He never meant to hurt her in the first place because Futaba is actually a member of the Japanese anti-variant organization. The Lord admits his deepest regret that he could not protect his wife or Futaba from the cruelty of that organization. As his body starts to fade away, he makes one final request. He calls Kazu the strongest singularity of all time and pleads with him to protect the weak and fragile ones who cannot defend themselves. With a peaceful smile, Susanoo disappears into thin air, leaving our hero heartbroken as he reaches out his hand, calling his name one last time. As our protagonist carries his sister, he still cannot make sense of what Susanoo meant by protecting the weak ones, wondering how in the world variants could ever be considered weak. After gently placing Futaba down, she slowly opens her eyes and calls out to him in a faint voice. The overprotective brother immediately starts shaking her, panicking as he asks if she's injured anywhere. Futaba replies that her shoulder hurts a little, but the moment she spots the marks on his neck, she freaks out and blurts out that he looks like he just got run over by truck Kun. Still confused about what's happening, she demands to know where they are and just what is going on. Kazu glances at Yui to make sure he's not about to say something stupid, then tells his sister the truth that a variant kidnapped her. Hearing that, Futaba is shocked that he even knows about variants, and that alone confirms his suspicion that she's truly part of the organization. Suddenly, she has a breakdown as she realizes she dragged her brother into the mess, and that big sister Yui ended up saving them both. Kazu admits she is mostly right about that. With a guilty smile, Futaba tells him to hold on a second before placing a charm on his chest and using some kind of healing magic that far surpasses anything he's ever seen. Stunned, he asks when she got involved in all this, but before she can answer, an old man suddenly speaks up. The old man addresses Kazu as the Takeru of this generation and then introduces himself as a member of Yamato, the Japanese anti-variant organization. Not wasting any time, he dives straight into explaining Futaba's connection with their group, but Yui quickly cuts him off. She doesn't trust his words and brings up the dark past and rumors that surround Yamato's name. Hearing that, the old man gives her the wrinkliest side eye imaginable, and he is offended to be accused by a half-Nordic girl. That instantly grinds Kazu's gears, and he fires back, saying he will never let Futaba return to them if they dare insult his Yui again. The old man seems impressed by his boldness and remarks that he truly possesses the spirit of Takeru. As Kazu wonders why they keep calling him that name, Futaba shouts from behind, warning him not to mess with dangerous people like them. After that, the old man politely asks Kazu to come along since he must have many questions about his sister and the truth of their world. Hearing that, our boy is intrigued and directly asks what they want from him, leaving Yui visibly taken aback. The old man replies that he should return to their main base with Futaba and flatly rejects Yui's offer to come along. He claims that negotiations are only between leaders of organizations, and she clearly isn't one. Kazu convinces Yui to stand down by whispering something into her ear, then accepts their invitation as Futaba's guardian. He is determined to judge for himself whether these people deserve her trust. The next day, the siblings head to Yamato's headquarters in a taxi, and Futaba quietly apologizes for dragging her brother into danger when she was supposed to be the one protecting him. However, our big brother is more bothered by the thought that variants might have existed even in his first life, which means he was completely clueless about Futaba's secret life, and she had been the one protecting him all along. The realization ticks him off so badly that he curses out loud, then gently pats her head, thanking her and telling her she can leave the protecting to her big brother now. She gets all flustered when he tells her to turn her frown upside down already, not realizing she's actually sulking because her perfect school attendance record just got ruined. When they arrive at the organization's headquarters, the siblings are welcomed by the old man, and our boy can't help but feel jealous that their offices are massive compared to the sweatshop he worked in. From the outside, the building looks completely ordinary, nothing shady at all. But Kazu quickly notices a powerful barrier surrounding it, one designed to make normal people overlook the place entirely. As the old man leads them into the elevator, Kazu realizes even someone as skilled as Susanoo could never have found this location on his own. When he steps out of the elevator, his jaw nearly hits the floor at the grand sight before him. Bro can't help but wonder just how much money these people are swimming in to afford this kind of luxury. Meanwhile, a masked member approaches the old man, who turns out to be the organization's leader, and tells him that someone important is waiting for him. But the leader simply waves it off and says they can wait, insisting Kazu needs to see something first before they talk. In a nearby luxury hotel room, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Kizo Abuchi, greets our hero with a smile that's way too unsettling to be friendly. The moment Kazu lays eyes on the man, he grinds his teeth, wondering what kind of deep game Yamato is playing by cozying up to the most influential figure in modern Japanese politics. Kizo Obesity greets them warmly, calling it a true honor to finally meet the leader of Yamato. With a polite smile, he asks about the two people accompanying him. The old man simply replies that they're very important members of the organization, which instantly piques the minister's curiosity. Kazu instinctively steps in front of his sister, shielding her from the man's unnerving gaze. He realizes he really is the same man who later becomes Japan's prime minister in his first life. The rumors Yui told him are no joke. Yamato really does control the government from the shadows. But what unsettles him more is figuring out what an organization that powerful could possibly need from a politician like Kizo. Just then, the minister casually signals his guard, who performs a strange spell that conjures a massive projector screen out of thin air. On the screen, they see a bald man tied to a chair, the culprit behind the metro bombing that claimed countless lives. Kizo explains that the families of the victims still live in pain, and that it's his deepest wish to rid the world of such suffering with the help of God's divine power. As the criminal slowly regains consciousness and frantically looks around, a masked creature suddenly appears before him. The leader calmly explains that this is the creature's invisibility. Before anyone can react, the masked being grabs the man's bald head, making him scream in raw terror. While Kazu wonders what in the world they're trying to prove, the creature crushes the man's skull like a watermelon. Our big brother instantly shields Futaba's eyes to keep her from getting mentally scarred by the gruesome sight. But the creature isn't done. It starts feeding on the lifeless body right there. The Yamato leader calmly explains that the monster can be controlled by starving it, and the minister watches in pure excitement, utterly fascinated by its strength. The leader continues, saying that the victims of this being, and even those who witness it, lose their memories over time. All traces of their actions, crimes, and even existence simply vanish. Kizo's face lights up in delight as he realizes he's finally found the perfect tool to fulfill his vision, an invisible executioner capable of cleansing their corrupted world. Just then, our hero finally snaps at the politician's garbage tear cap and calls him out, saying it is way too convenient to have a power that can delete anyone who opposes him without a trace. He adds that it also gives the government an easy way out. They can erase any evidence of their own failure to prevent crimes by simply deleting them from existence. In short, it is a total scam. The corrupt pig tries to act all offended, insisting that it was never his intention. Before he can say more, the old leader cuts in, explaining that their organization and the government have been using this power for decades to protect the nation. Then, the senile fossil high on copium states that his true goal is to control the power of variance and ascend to godhood, claiming he'll bring eternal peace to the world. That is the final straw for Kazu. He grabs Futaba's hand and declares he will never let his sister live in a cult full of delusional maniacs. Instantly, all the guards storm in from the hallway, chasing him through the massive facility. On the run, he notices they're using charms like Futaba's, so he blasts them apart with a single strike, severing their power source in one go. Watching his overwhelming strength, the leader studies his power carefully, intrigued by the man who defeated Susanoo himself. But he isn't too worried after all. It is impossible to escape the barrier surrounding this place, no matter how powerful you are. Kazu also sees firsthand how insanely complex the barrier is after landing. At that moment, Futaba silently stares at him, thinking the old man was right that her brother is the Takeru of their generation. That title ticks Kazu off, so he demands to know who this Takeru even is. Futaba explains that Takeru is what Yamato calls the singularity, a being born to keep balance between realms. She reveals that their world isn't the only one out there. There's the demon realm, the human realm, the divine realm, and another world beyond them all. Normally they're stable, but sometimes rifts open between them, letting variance leak through. Unless the singularity stops them, those rifts will eventually destroy everything. She adds that the singularity is said to always be born in the other world, which the Japanese organization calls the Forever Land, and the Nordic organization calls Valhalla. Hearing that, Kazu starts to wonder if the reason he trained for so many years in that world was to fight variance all along. He has mixed feelings, though, when he remembers all the friends he lost there. As those thoughts weigh on him, the door behind bursts open and a whole squad of masked creatures rushes in, surrounding him. The leader of Yamato steps forward once more, saying their research now allows them to create copies of those monsters. He also proudly admits that they synthesized the drug by experimenting on hundreds of deities and humans. With a self-righteous tone, he offers Kazu one last chance to join him or be brainwashed by force. In response, our boy smirks and tells him straight up that the villain's speech was impressive, but he does not give a flying duck about any Takaru or singularity nonsense. Because at the end of the day, he is satisfied with being Kazu, Futaba's one and only big brother. At that moment, a single swing of his sword instantly decapitates all of the variant clones. The Yamato members are utterly stunned, and the leader realizes that the singularity of his generation is truly unbeatable. Even then, the old man declares that underestimating his organization will be Kazu's undoing. The clone's healing power surprises our boy too, since his sword has an anti-regeneration enchantment. He quickly realizes the geezer is stalling for time as the man commands the clones to attack him. As the giant creatures lunge at him, Kazu slices through them in an instant and holds his sword to the leader's neck, calling checkmate. However, that is the moment his underlings rush to attack Futaba and completely trap her inside a wall of talismans. Kazu realizes too late that she was their goal the whole time as the masked men activate the seals and warn her in advance. But as it turns out, the girl fries all the talismans with a lightning spell and even manages to roast her attackers. Their incompetence disappoints the leader, but the masked men apologize and explain that the young lady is already far above the skill level of anyone in the organization. Surprised, Kazu asks his sister when she got so strong, and she coolly admits it just happened when she thought she had to protect her dear brother. While the siblings share a wholesome moment, the leader orders the rest of the battered demon clones to capture them. Seeing that, the brother-sister duo draw their weapons and unleash a bombastic tag-team attack that annihilates all the clones. That really gets on the leader's nerves, and Kazu pushes him further, telling him to give up already and send them home. Even the old man's servants advise him to listen to the singularity because he is clearly too strong for them. At that moment, the leader raises his arm, revealing strange lines and an eye at its center. He uses his mysterious power to lift the demon clones' bodies, and his servants begin panicking in fear. They warn him that the experimental power is far too dangerous to use, but the wrinkly senior goes Super Saiyan. All of the demon bodies turn into black sludge and form a giant orb that wraps around his body. Futaba is shocked to see that the forbidden fusion of human and demon might actually work. To everyone's disbelief, the leader transforms into a four-armed demon while maintaining his humanity, but our hero only looks disappointed if this is what the man meant by a godly power to change the world. The demon opens his mouth like he is about to fire something and tells Kazu to brace himself against the power of a real god. Futaba shouts out a warning, but before she can even finish, our boy summons a shield. He mocks the old man's transformation, calling it pathetic for something obtained from 100 humans and deities. The demon is shocked that a mere human can take the hit, but Kazu coolly questions who really got hit as he flicks the blood off his sword. The demon has a seizure trying to process why blood is gushing from his chest. He admits that Kazu's speed is impressive, but insists it is not a big deal since he can erase the wound like it never happened. Our hero finally understands how the miraculous regeneration works, and to test his theory, he makes another deep cut across the demon's back. With a confident smirk, Kazu brags that he cannot even count how many times he has slain enemies who could regenerate endlessly. For this fight, he decides to stick with the strategy of slicing him up so many times that there is nothing left to heal. That makes the demon burst out laughing, admitting that Kazu really is the strongest singularity in history. But even so, he claims he will soon surpass him and achieve his dream of becoming invincible, daring Kazu to block his next attack if he can. The demon channels his inner Gojo and activates domain expansion, which Kazu immediately notices feels exactly like the power Susanoo once used. However, the demon denies it, explaining that his version is superior because when he forbids Kazu from moving, his body truly cannot move. The guy cackles like a maniac, watching him struggle against the domain's pressure, calling it the real power of a god. The demon proudly declares that he has rewritten the laws of the world, and now it is impossible for Kazu to move until he permits it. Futaba tries to rush in to save her brother, but the demon orders her to be gone, sending her flying into a nearby tree. With a twisted grin, he laughs that even the great singularity cannot overcome his divinity. It is at that moment that Kazu realizes this is not just any spell, it is true heavenly power. The demon grows cocky and finally reveals his secret, boasting that his strength comes from merging with Susanoo himself. Kazu is flabbergasted to see that, and it is at that moment that he finally understands what Susanoo meant when he requested him to save the weak variants. As he wonders how Susanoo ended up merging with this psycho, the leader proudly reveals that his men discovered something like a door between worlds, the same kind of door Kazu once heard about from Thor himself. When a deity dies in the human realm, their soul returns through the door they originally came from. Yamato's scientists created a way to trap those souls mid-return, using advanced spiritual tech. After that, they began conducting sick experiments on the captured souls of higher beings. Kazu finally understands why humans hunted Susanoo's wife for no reason. It was all part of their disgusting project. And the final piece of the old man's grand plan turned out to be none other than Susanoo, the strongest deity of all. The demon laughs like a deranged maniac as he reveals that Susanoo's wife had been pregnant when they kidnapped her. He used her child as a pawn, a double agent who would one day make Kazu and Susanoo fight until one of them weakened. When Susanoo died, Yamato's scientists swooped in to capture his soul and achieve his twisted goal. Now he boasts the power to rewrite the laws of the world as he pleases, even the power to bend humanity itself. Then, with a smirk, he points out that his order for Kazu not to move should have also stopped his heart from beating. Acknowledging that Kazu's willpower is beyond human limits, the Yamato leader offers him one last chance to join his side. But if he refuses, he threatens to make him watch as Futaba is torn apart piece by piece. Hearing that, Kazu panics and pushes every drop of strength and willpower in his body to fight against the absolute command. The demon bursts into laughter at his futile resistance and decides to make him suffer by ordering Futaba's body to twist into itself. Blood streams down Kazu's face as he struggles to move, helplessly watching his sister scream his name in pain. Then out of nowhere, the demon freezes mid-air as his arm moves on its own to rip Susanoo out of his body. That single act erases his divine authority over the world temporarily and finally frees Kazu. He rushes to his sister's side, kneeling beside her and asking if she is all right. Though he has no idea what just happened, he believes Susanoo fulfilled his wish to protect Futaba even after death. Yet the demon coldly discards Susanoo's head like a crusty body pillow, boasting that he already possesses the divine word spell. Seeing that, Kazu enhances his agility and tells his sister to focus and believe in him no matter what happens next. After explaining his plan, she hesitates and says it sounds impossible to pull off. With no time left, the demon starts chanting his spell, and Kazu flashes right above him, slashing at the demon suffering from malnutrition. Just as the demon commands him to rip himself to pieces, Kazu yells for Futaba to do it. She gathers her courage, raises her hand, and activates her own domain expansion. The demon's eyes widen in disbelief as he watches a mere human girl wield a power once thought to belong only to gods.